2014 work session of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining. Please join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, just a couple of brief announcements from me. We have some exciting events coming up in the near future. On Friday evening at the library from 6:30 to 8:30 is a kickoff fundraiser for the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum, which has been kicking around since the 90s and is finally getting off the drawing board for the third or fourth time. Assemblywoman Galiff has pledged $1 million. There are individual
money?
No. Yes, there's money in the dormitory account, whatever that's called, the dormitory fund in the state. And numerous people have donated money towards it. It's a several $million project, many $million project. So please join us at the library at 6:30 on Friday. And then at 10 o'clock on Saturday until 5 o'clock is the annual Village Fair, which is all over Main Street and the parking lots and Spring Street down to Maple. And part of Church Street. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of activities and food and vendors. There will be a fire truck and an ambulance and various other things for kids to look into. So bring the entire family. And on next Saturday, the 21st, is the Day of Portugal, which is a big Portuguese fair with dancing and singing and great food and lots of camaraderie, also in the parking lots in downtown. So please plan to join us for that. Anyone else? Yeah, John.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to remind everybody that the fire department on Saturday, this Saturday at 6:30 on the waterfront, will have the yearly inspection. This is a opportunity for all the firehouses to shine up the trucks and get everything in ship shape. And there'll be an inspection, and there's an award to the firehouse that does their best.
Yeah,
So,
Rescue 14 will be winning that, yes.
Okay, well, good luck with that, Bob. Anyway, if you want to see the best volunteer fire service in the state of New York, that's an opportunity for you to go down to the waterfront at 6:30. You can watch the sun go down and see some beautiful fire trucks and celebrate our fire department. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to remind everybody, if you haven't been to energizeossining.org, to please check it out. It's an opportunity for little or no money out of pocket. You can have your home upgraded, get an energy efficiency upgrade that will make your house not only more comfortable in very hot or very cold weather, but will save you money, and it will also help all of us to reduce the stress on the grid. Energy resourcefulness is, energy efficiency is not just saving money, but it actually is helpful during times of disaster and a lot of extra heat waves that we see so much more of. So please go to energizeossining.org and learn how it might work well for your home. And tomorrow evening, Thursday, June 12th, please join us at the Ossining Public Library at 6:30, sorry, John, for a free screening of a very exciting and fun film, Pete Seeger, The Power of Song. Anybody who has been to the Clearwater Festival, you're getting ready to go to that later this month, the 21st and 22nd, just right up in Croton Point Park. And this is a really special event. This is our one-year anniversary since we founded the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series, where the community gathers every month to watch a documentary and have a discussion about an issue that matters. And this one is very celebratory. In fact, we'll start off with a ceremony with a presentation of awards for the series, which will help it be financially solvent going forward so we can continue to grow as a series, as well as live performances from a musical group through Clearwater, which is called The Power of Song. So please join us at 6:30 at the Bedars Theater in the Ossining Public Library tomorrow, June 12th.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, thank you. We have a very interesting agenda this evening for the board and for the public. The first item on the agenda is a discussion on the Village of Osting's 2013 audited financial statement. Bring everyone up to date in terms of how the Village of Ossining did during 2013. This evening we have Dominic Consolo, who is our representative at O'Connor Davies, the village's auditor. And I'll turn it over to Dominic and our village treasurer, Thomas Warren.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Welcome back.
The year went quickly. We've completed the audit of the Village of Ossining for the year ended December 31st, 2013. I assume you all have a copy of the financial statement. As you can see, it's a rather thick document, but the most important information within the document, the village has two major funds, the general fund and the water fund. I'd just briefly like to take you through the operations for the fiscal year this evening. If you would turn to page 58 of the document. And on page 58, we have the general fund, and it's a schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, both budget and actual, for the year ended December 31st, 2013. And on the very next page, page 59, we have comparative amounts for the year ended December 31st, 2012. If you, you'll see it's in a 4-column presentation. The original budget, which is the budget that was approved by this board, voted upon by this board back in December or November 2012, with one small change to it, and that change is any purchase orders, outstanding commitments that were outstanding from the year before, automatically increased that original budget. And that amount was about $181,000. So that change has been made to the budget automatically to satisfy those open encumbrances. The final budget, which takes into consideration any changes made during the year to the budget, and again approved by this board, the actual results of operations, which are the amounts collected and the amounts expended for the year, and a variance column, which is simply the difference between the final budget and the actual. And if you would look on the original budget line, the third line up from the bottom, you'll see there's a negative number of $831,000. And that means when the budget was adopted, along with the prior year's open encumbrances, that it was anticipated that the village would spend $831,000 more than it would take in. And since you are required to have a balanced budget, the methodology used to balance that budget was that you took surplus funds that you'd accumulated in prior years to balance that budget. $650,000 in surplus funds, and again, $181,000 in prior year open purchase orders. If the $650,000 of surplus funds were not available, the board would have had several choices. Basically increase real property taxes or fees, reduce expenditures or programs, or somehow a mixture of both. But you were able to use $650,000 to balance the budget. During the year, on the final budget column, again that third line up from the bottom, you'll see that there was additional appropriations approved by this board, and now the anticipated use of fund balance for the year was $1,264,000. So if actual results of operations had come out exactly as anticipated in the final budget, the fund balance of the village would have dropped by $1,264,000. If you go to the actual column, again that third line up from the bottom, you'll see that indeed the fund balance did drop, but it only dropped by $395,000. So when you take your variance to budget, the village did approximately $869,000 better than anticipated within the final budget. So certainly a very positive year for the village of Ossining.
How about that?
As far as where in the budget that variance came from, you have two sides of the budget, as you know, a expenditure side and a revenue side. And about a third of the way down the page, you have your total revenues. And you can see the final budget anticipated total revenues at $29,956,000. The actual revenues collected were $30,213,000. So of that variance of 869, $257,000 of positive variance comes from the revenue side of the budget. And if you look down that column, you'll see there's some positive numbers and some negative numbers. The first one, real property taxes, negative number of $146,000. And those are just uncollected taxes that will be collected within subsequent years. If the amounts of taxes aren't collected during the year, within 60 days after year end, they cannot be taken in as revenues of that year. Third line, the non-property taxes, you have a positive variance of $129,000, and that's the sharing of the county sales tax. And some franchise fees. And down in the state aid category, you'll see there's a positive variance of $123,000. That's some recycling grants and some FEMA money that came in from Superstorm Sandy. And the federal amount of $175 is also FEMA money. You got a state share and a federal share out of that, the $175,000. From the expenditure side of the budget, about halfway down the page, you'll see that the final budget on expenditures was anticipated at $29,576,000. Actual expenditures, $29,057,000. So the savings on the expenditure side of the budget was almost $519,000. That's about 1.7% of the budget. So certainly when you when you put together a budget 13 months before year end, I'd say it's as good a guess as any as to to come with a 1.7% of budget. The positive categories there in the general government support area, which are the various village departments, except for the other ones listed, $214,000. Most of that is contingency that wasn't utilized. Your public safety area was $98,000. Another $99,000 in the transportation area, and $70,000 in the employee benefit areas. And then you had some insurance recoveries down below, and the other financing sources uses of $51,000, and some transfers in of $41,000 from other funds. So just going back to that actual column, as I said before, you actually did use $395,000 of your fund balance for the year ended December 31st, 2012. You started the year with a total fund balance of $7,234,000. So you end the year with $6,839,000, and this is a total fund balance number. It's made up of several categories. And if you just turn back one page, page 57, and on page 57 we have the comparative balance sheet. The balance sheet reflects the assets, the liabilities, and the fund balance of the town, of the village, exactly as they existed on December 31st of 2013. And the second line up from the bottom, you'll see that same number I just mentioned, $6,839,000. And you'll see it's in 5 categories. You have a non-spendable category, which is made up of inventories and some prepaid expenses, which are mostly your retirement bill to the state for your ERS and police and fire. And what happens there, in the month of December, you pay an estimated retirement bill that includes the months of January, February, and March for the subsequent year. So you have 3 months paid in advance. And since that amount is no longer in cash, where you can't expend it, generally accepted accounting principles for municipalities requires that you set that aside as non-spendable, since the cash is no longer available. You have some restricted fund balance, which are amounts to be put aside by the board, but in accordance with general municipal law, and that's $165,000, and $136,000 of that is for future capital projects, and a small amount of $29,341 for crime control. There's a committed for economic development of $5,000, and then we have the assigned of $754,000, and that is the open purchase orders at the end of 2013 of $104,000, and again for the 2014 budget, you've used $650,000 to balance that budget, and that's what the assigned is. And that leaves you with the unassigned. This is your free and clear fund balance. This is the amount that's available for contingencies, future budgets, and that's $5,005,000, and that's about 15.6% of your budget, which is approximately $32 million. So certainly shows that the Village of Ossining is in excellent financial condition at December 31st of 2013.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Real quickly, your other major fund, which is your water fund, I'll just take you to the balance sheet. I can see you must have a full agenda here this evening. I know these people certainly didn't come to see me.
It's more exciting than your work.
Page 68, you can see the third line up from the bottom. It says assigned fund balance. This is your water fund, and it's $5.4 million. Now, within that $5.4 million is your water rents receivable of $2.8. And as we know, that's a revolving receivable. You bill, pay, money comes in, you bill again, some money comes in. So really, the cash is probably around half of the $5.4 million. The $5.4 million is about 55% of your $10 million budget. You want to take into consideration your receivables, you're probably at 25 to 30% of your budget. So again, the water fund, excellent financial condition at December 31st. So all in all, the village is in great shape.
Terrific. Terrific. Any questions?
I do have one question. You made reference earlier to what a great job we did at predicting and anticipating, actually, the board did at the end of 2012, anticipating what the expenses would be for 2013. And it was 1.7% off, which is very, very close. I'm wondering if it had been not as closely predicted, in either direction, are there reasons that you like to see that we may not have been able to predict perfectly accurately? Are there financially favorable reasons that don't count against us in your judgment of our accuracy?
Well, I don't think any of this would count against it, because they are positive. But certainly in the revenue area, where I said that there was a positive variance of $257,000. Most of that was the FEMA money, which wasn't anticipated. So
Right.
that's the reason for that. On the expenditure side, throughout the year, there's always unanticipated expenditures that arise. Things break, so so as long as if you are, over the budget in an area, as long as it's because of an unanticipated expenditure that couldn't have been thought of during budget time, then of course it's fine. That's what fund balance is for.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions?
Just one. Were there any things that you found in this audit that caused you any concerns that we should be thinking about?
No, if there was, you would have heard from me sooner, I assure you.
So Tom, you're not going down the block to Sing Sing this year?
There has been a management letter issued. Tom has that. He's going to prepare his responses to that, and the board will have that shortly, I assume.
So you may be going down the street.
Any other questions? Terrific.
Thank
you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for having
Yet
me.
another year of good reports,
See you
excellent
next year.
reports.
Yes.
See you.
See you next
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda, several years ago, the Village of Ossining acquired title to 200 Main Street, the former Bank for Savings building on the corner of Route 9 and Main Street. It's been in the village's possession for a while, and there's been some maintenance attached to that. However, there's also been discussion of what the ultimate use of that building might be. The village obtained actually 3 separate proposals or submissions of, these were actually unsolicited proposals, and they were provided to the village from 3 different separate entities who have indicated interest in the property for acquisition and for redevelopment and for positioning them for new uses. So that's why we're here to discuss the 3 proposals that we have in hand so far with you this evening. And with that, I'll turn it over to our manager, Downtown Economic Development, Ingrid Richards.
Before Ingrid opens up the discussion formally, I should probably just acknowledge I'm going to step away from the table and recuse myself from any deliberations because I have my husband is one of the members of one of the teams that's going to be presenting. And with everything that I evaluate and deliberate on, I seek to represent the folks of this community as honorably as I possibly can and without bias, and in this case, I clearly would have a bias, and I trust that my colleagues will represent the people very well.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Well done.
I'll turn it over to Ingrid.
Good evening. Tonight, the Village Board will hear 3 requests to become preferred developer on the 200 Main Street building, which is also known to many in the community as the Ossining Bank for Savings. To provide a brief background, the building was erected in 1908, last occupied about 30 years ago, and gifted to the village by Mr. John Gavea in 2004. I want to provide a number of reasons why 200 Main Street is important to the village and the revitalization of our downtown. Its historical and architectural significance. This building was added to the National Register in 1988. Number 2, its high visibility in the downtown area, located on the intersections of the 3 most vital business corridors in the village, Croton Avenue, Main Street, and Highland Avenue. It also sits at the gateway to the downtown area, which makes it a highly desirable building for any business. Number 3, its potential to bring vibrancy to the community through its eventual occupation by a thriving business will continue the village's efforts in revitalizing the downtown. So, let's first begin with Mr. Eric Garrity, who will describe his idea of acquiring the building to house the Sing Sing Hill Brewery.
Hello, I'm Eric Garrity. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the board and the village management for having us this evening to present our concept for 200 Main Street. Again, I'm Eric Garrity. This is Matt Curtin and Lisa Chang, and we are Sing Sing Hill Brewery, and this is our legal counsel, Alex Jeffrey.
Welcome all.
Now, before I begin, we have should I pass this off to you? Thank you. So this is our plan summary. Is anyone in the audience interested in taking a look?
Gracias.
And you want to talk about, we have some beer for the village to sample if they like now or after the meeting.
I would say after the meeting.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not so sure about that. We should probably try it now.
You can recuse yourself as well.
Yes, we can all recuse ourselves and go drink, or we can hear your proposal. You choose.
Well, I'm Matt Curtin. I'm the head brewer for Sing Sing Hill Brewery. I've been a home brewer for about 20-odd years, and through that time, honing the craft, and once I come to meet Eric, discovered that we had a lot of the same passions for sustainable agriculture and local agriculture, and locally crafted beer is just an extension of that. So what we have today is a double IPA. Would necessarily be one of our flagship beers. It's big, it's hoppy. Unfortunately, it's not brewed with New York State malt at this time, because in the formulation phase, we needed to have malt on hand. So instead of that, we went with an all-organic product. We also use New York State hops. I grew hops at the house as well that we used in there. So it's just it's a big beer, kind of an example of what we would be looking to do.
So I'd just like to start by saying that we are very excited to have this opportunity to present tonight. Coming here this evening puts us probably about a month ahead of our timeline. We were asked by Ingrid and Richard to come in and present along with 2 other groups interested in the property for preferred developer status. So our ideal timeline would have been to probably take one more month. At the end of July, we would have had our blind offering in place to get the seed money to get us through the schematic design phase. And at that point, we would have come to the village to request preferred developer status in order to move forward and get the architect's square footage estimate into some very specific hard numbers for the brewery and so forth, that we can then go and raise the rest of the funding. So I apologize. The member of our group who's the investment arm is unable to attend tonight. He's out of the country for a few days, but he will make himself available for a future work session, or to answer any questions that you have about the financial end of our plan through email or phone calls or what have you. So please feel free to email us or have Ingrid get in touch with us if you'd like some further clarification of anything on the financial end. But at this point, I'd like to just focus on our concept and answer any questions to that regard. We are looking to set up as a New York farm brewery. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this legislation. It's relatively new. It's an effort by the state to increase, well, it's an economic stimulation plan looking to take the interest in craft beer and kind of the economic boom right now in the craft beer industry and couple that with agriculture to link the beer to the New York ingredients. There are incredible incentives to open up a farm brewery as far as the tax advantages, the streamlined licensing, and the ability to do several things. But there are certain requirements that we brew with 20% ingredients to start, and then it steps up periodically to 60 and then 90% New York ingredients in an effort to allow the agricultural industry to catch up with the beer industry. So, do you want to talk about the beers that we plan on having on tap?
Sure. So, I kind of discussed the double IPA. That's more like your beer geek, like the beer that you're really going to go to if you're somebody who's really into beer. The other two that we were talking about using for our core products would be a Belgian-style honey hibiscus wit, honey being a very easily obtainable New York State ingredient that could reach that 20% requirement pretty easily. With that, we've done it a number of times. It's been a hit everywhere anybody's tried it. It's very interesting in the fact that it doesn't look like beer. It kind of doesn't taste like beer. It's pink. It's very flavorful. The hibiscus gives it a sour note that you're not necessarily expecting. If what you've been used to is big kind of commercial brewing. So that one's very different beer. And then the chocolate milk stout would be the third offering that we would do in our core products. It's a darker beer, as the stout kind of would let you to believe. The milk aspect of it comes from lactose, unfermentable sugar that is part of the brewing ingredients. That'll also lend sweetness and mouthfeel to it. And then I usually flavor it with an organic cacao nib to give it the chocolate, so you get kind of like a dessert beer all in one. Another one that's very popular both with beer aficionados and people who claim that they don't really like beer because it kind of doesn't taste what you would think of as big beer. So those three would be our core products. Then we would subsequently do seasonal offerings and anything else that's interesting. And that's the ability of the New York farm brewer to be able to react to what's going on in the agriculture and in the environment at the time for seasonality and any kind of ingredients that they want to take advantage of that big beer necessarily can't do. we'd be able to formulate these ingredients and turn around a batch within 3 to 4 weeks. So we're looking for seasonality to be able to really be part of what we do and what people would come to expect from Sing Sing Kill.
I'm sorry, just got a quick question. You have samples of all those beers that you described?
Not with us tonight, but they are available. We can follow up.
I'm just checking.
Sure.
I have a question. What's a bibble?
Oh, barrel.
It's barrel.
Yeah, that's a barrel. A barrel is basically 2 kegs of beer.
Okay, that helps.
It's 31 gallons.
So it's 30, a bibble is, a barrel
Yeah.
is 2 kegs. That's great. Thank you, because I'm looking at this and going, I don't know what that is.
So, just to give you some background, we are residents of the village of Ossining, and when we decided to go ahead with this venture and open up a brewery, it was very important to focus on opening it up in the village of Ossining. And 200 Main Street, sitting there in that ideal spot right on the corner of 2 major thoroughfares, was quite a draw. And as we started looking into the property, it came evident to us why it has sat vacant for so long. The build out of this space is an expensive undertaking, and we feel we have a unique opportunity to get this building revived and brought back to life and put back on the tax rolls for the taxpayers of Ossining, but also create an incredible destination. What we have the advantage in our plan is that we are crafting the product on site. Restaurants would have a difficult time, most likely, moving into this location because of the New York State Liquor Authority's 200 and 500 foot rules. It negates the serving of distilled spirits. Our business model would not obviously serve distilled spirits, and we feel that that is something forgivable in a brewery. People are there to taste the offerings that are sitting in the vessels right in front of them that they share the space with. We could serve New York Farm wine as well and cider that we would make. So a restaurant would have a narrowed customer base and a narrowed, potential income required to, make back the necessary costs of the build-out, which at this point we perceive to be $3 million at the $500 a square foot estimate from our architect for a building of our nature, setting up, the brewery equipment and the restaurant end of it and all that, using, green construction and green systems. I was able to find a couple items from the village. The Calgi, let's see, I have it here. About a decade ago, Calgi Construction did a facility review study, and their schematic budget came in at $2 million, basically to renovate the space out for multi-use, art gallery, with mezzanine level for town and village public access station and basement just for mechanical. So those are numbers from a decade ago to basically turn the property around into a raw space for someone to move in. There was also on the village's website a brief history of 200 Main Street that Miguel is credited with writing. And I'm assuming it's from probably 2005, which notes that the Village commissioned a study indicating that renovations to make the building useful as a potential cultural arts center would cost approximately $2.9 million. So it's a heavy lift to get this building back up and running and give it the status it deserves. But we feel that because of the income potential of using the facility, not just as the retail space for people to come and sample the wares and an entertainment space and that kind of venue, but also being able to craft it on site gives us that upper hand to make these figures work. And on that end, I just want to say, briefly about funding sources, because I'm sure that's, something that you'll be interested in. We have spoken with Community Capital Fund. They are putting us in touch with the New York Business Development Corp. The Community Preservation Corporation, Doug Olcott, over at 2 Church Street. We've spoken with him, and although we're not in their purview because they are a residential, it has to be residential, but they're offered to help set us up with other funding sources that are more in keeping with what we're looking to do. We're also going to do private investment, and there are other organizations like the Hudson River Ventures that looks to increase the economic prosperity of river towns, and they have just recently funded a brewery and has decided that breweries are within those the lines of something that is economically viable and worth funding. So, and just wanted to talk about the space itself. It would not only be a brewery and tap room and a restaurant offering sort of farm-to-table, simple dishes that would pair well with the beer and cider offerings. It would be a place for quality ingredients, not excessive or fancy offerings, a place where families could come and gather. We intend to take the first runnings of our beer before it goes into the fermentation stage and carbonate them, and that would be our soft drink. So anyone, whether you wanted to have the alcoholic beverage or the non-alcoholic beverage, you'd be able to be drinking the same product. So again, it would be a family focused. Also, we intend to do a lot of entertainment. Structure it so that it has a space for live music and performances and all kinds of I'll actually, why don't I turn this over to you? You're kind of like our entertainment specialist.
Well, I think, hi, the space lends itself to like a gallery feel. I think we would be able to showcase local artists from around, and the focus would be family oriented. People would be able to bring their children and just kind of hang out, and there isn't really a place that we can do that. So we're looking to put that in the village. I did want to speak about the logo. So I did have some involvement in that. I wanted to just point out that we've got the double arches featured in the logo, as well as the Sing Sing Kill that flows below it. We have the hops, which is an ingredient of beer. And on the end of the arrow is a 2-row barley, which creates the malt. So you have the 3 ingredients, they equal beer, and there you have it. So, cool. Yeah, there we go. And I guess that the arrow also can reference our Native American roots as well.
So, to our advantage, the vault, if anyone's been in 200 Main Street, the vault still exists, which we intend to turn into our walk-in cooler for people to come and purchase, six-packs and kegs and what have you, to consume off premises. We're also going to have, because the New York Farm Brewery license is interested in drawing on all aspects of the New York economy, anything art-related, anything to do with New York State. They encourage, if it links to brewing, then it's something that should be sold. For instance, art is within the legislation, but also, we would turn it into a sort of farmers market in a sense that there would be, kits, brewing kits, with our recipes for people, for home brewers. The spent grains we would, bake into bread products and serve, like the buns for, our burgers and so on and so forth. And, excess bread products would be sold in the vault and, various things like that to try to, keep the system as sustainable as possible. One of the things we're also excited about is that the creation of jobs here in Ossining. We were recently at Peekskill Brewery talking to Keith, the owner up there, who has been, incredibly helpful with some guidance, and we figure, based on the information, that he's provided us, like 40 to 50 jobs being created here in Ossining that, run the gamut from, brewers, executive chefs, all the way down to, line cooks and wait staff. So we're very pleased that that's also, a result of the plan. In case you are unaware, the craft beer industry is on a huge growth spurt right now. The level of success of brew pubs far exceeds that of breweries or restaurants. So the success to failure rate is, one that investors are gravitating towards. So it's amazing to me how easy it has been to get people on board with this, the concept of the brew pub. And just this February, we took a tour of the farm breweries operating throughout the state. All of the breweries that we visited were operating at maximum capacity within the first year of the legislation, and all of them looking to expand their operations. So that was very, very positive findings of our trip. So, does anyone have anything to add? Does anyone have any questions?
I know you covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah, you really did.
In fairness, we have to look at the other proposals, but, I've been wanting this ever since I lived here, so, I'm certainly like that. There's more to look at. I guess, like anything, we won't, I would be concerned about funding. I would be concerned about making sure that you had the proper funding to get the thing going. I certainly understand the request to get the exclusive for a period of time to get those things in order, and that's the way we do it for everybody. So I thank you for your time and all your hard work.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
really,
you.
yeah. This is a great presentation.
Thank you.
You guys did a really good job, and I'm excited about more beer.
And we'll leave the beer behind for you.
Thanks.
I'm not
Or
sure.
in the parking lot.
Is that considered draft?
Yes.
Do we have a refrigerator we can put that in?
We don't know that to be true.
Oh, that'd be great, thank you. We'll need that after this meeting, so.
I think we should have beer at every meeting.
Well, if you divide them by all of us,
Okay.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people to talk to, so.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. It's a tough act.
Very
to follow.
exciting. So our next presenter is Mr. Elio Mazzala of Interoceanic Corporation, and he will discuss his idea of acquiring the building to relocate his office space.
But did you bring beer?
Now, Bob, now, come on.
I don't have any beer.
It's okay.
Sorry to say.
The universe is full of
Thanks.
opportunity
Yeah,
here.
thanks.
Yours is one of three, so we're happy
Thank you.
that you're
In
here.
that case, thank you for coming.
I would normally say due to my client's products. By the way, I'm Dennis Noskin. I'm an architect in Tarrytown, and I'm really greatly familiar with Ossining because this was a police headquarters at one time,
Yes.
and I was the architect that renovated this building. I also did the Jean-Paul
We had some
Rodriguez.
complaints.
Huh?
We
Yeah,
had some
yeah, talk to
complaints,
you about
but
that, yeah.
we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
The Jean-Paul Rodriguez Center we did, which is the double-story maintenance garage out the back. And we also did the water treatment plant way back, as well as some other private ventures. We're located in Tarrytown, not too far away. And we know a little bit about the village from our dealings, which is great. So it's good to be back here. And I think one of the things might be air conditioning, I'm not sure. But anyways, this building is really enticing. As a matter of fact, just to give you some history behind it, for me, I looked at this building 12 years ago to my own corporate headquarters here, my own little architectural firm, because I believe that 200 Main Street is really a gem. But I know kind of a little bit too much about it. I've walked it before with the village engineers, Paul Fraioli and Andy Tice. And it's got great character. It's a Beaux-Arts. It's listed on historic landmarks. I'm sure you know that from being in a village. It's also part of the Crescent, which is that entry point into the village, and you can't miss it when you're going south. And it shows, sturdiness and stability of a bank, and that's the way they were built. They were built, these big behemoths that weren't going anywhere. And in fact, that facade is really not going anywhere. The problem, of course, that even the previous application mentioned is the interiors. And the interiors of it, unfortunately, have really deteriorated very badly. Leaking of the roof, and my client knows this, there's a whole spectrum of mold and mildew inside that hits colors that I've never seen before.
But they are in nature.
They are in
Of a
nature.
sort.
They certainly are
So it's
natural.
organic.
They are organic.
Perhaps they can use it in the beer.
I don't think I would use it in the beer, but a lot of the original plaster details on the inside from that period are just gone. And unfortunately, they might even have, even though it hasn't been tested yet, the famous A word, which would even make it more prohibitive to touch it. It makes it really complicated because on the outside it's an historic structure, and my client's intent, we'll talk a little bit about him in a minute, is to leave it just the way it is on the outside. Leave it as a jewel, of course, maybe fix up some of the landscaping. The one thing it needs, according to code, is an ADA accessible ramp on the steps, because you can't avoid that. That's the code. It's a federal code, in fact, the Americans with Disabilities Act. As you know, it's really been falling into disuse, even though the building was built in 1908, and has sat there, unfortunately, with the village for quite a while. As I know you pondered a couple of schemes on what to do with it from different community events. But the 6,100 square foot Beaux-Arts style is great for my client, and my client is involved with, well, I should tell you who my client is. It's the Interoceanic Corporation, we call them IOC, and they deal with the distribution of bulk chemical and fertilizers throughout the world. I guess you would kind of say it's more logistics. And they don't bring fertilizer into the building. They don't bring any of the chemicals. This is their offices. And the one thing great about this firm is it's had a long history right here in the village. As a matter of fact, the principals owned the building down on Highland Avenue for quite a while. They right now reside at 500 Executive Boulevard in Ossining, which is great. And they want to stay right here in Ossining and employ Ossining people right here. And this bank is perfect for them because it gives them the same symbol of stability, and it's a rock basically. And they want to bring their staff down to Ossining, as well as their visitors that come to take advantage of the shops and the restaurants that are down on Main Street and really revitalize it. And we've talked about this because that building, you guys call it the Crescent, I call it kind of a southern gateway as you come through there, is just such an important landmark. You can't miss it. It really needs that lifetime vitality that you actually specify in your comprehensive plan. That VC zone, there's, and I'm just quoting out of your own book here, is to preserve the historic downtown Ossining as a center of village life, to promote increased business activity in downtown by permitting uses and levels of intensity that are greater than elsewhere in the village, and to provide the opportunities for upstairs residents or offices in the down as so to encourage street life at all times of day and evening. This is perfect for them. This, you couldn't, if you had to map out a particular use, this is like perfect. The other thing is, I think, as I mentioned, it'll help commerce because they'll be bringing outsiders from all over the world, literally, to see Ossining as far as its development. It's a real prominent showplace, and unlike maybe other people that are applying for this thing, and the principals will tell you in a second, we have a timing issue. Their lease, quite candidly, ends at 500 Executive Boulevard pretty soon, like by September of next year. So they want to get going on it. And unlike other applicants might be there, there's no contingency for financing on this, which means we're not waiting for a New York State building economic loan. We're not waiting for any kind of financing. And they're willing to sign contract and sign a check over to the village right away and start business. And we would hope the village would cooperate with that as well by helping us maybe with the building department, saying, you know, we really need, he wants to be in by September. He doesn't want to pay double rent or incur double expenses. He's prepared. Our numbers are a little bit different from the numbers that were quoted before, maybe because of the civic nature of it, or maybe because of redoing some of the structure on the inside. We figure that the pricing to improve the interior of the space would be between $750,000 and $1 million, which is still pretty sizable, which means stripping it down basically almost to the masonry walls on the inside and getting all of that toxic materials, to say the least, out of the building and reconstruct on the inside. His layouts are very simple. They're pretty open plans with a few offices, so it's not complicated at all. The Ossining Bank is really kind of beseeching a community-oriented investment in an historic structure that really needs restoration. IOC is an ideal candidate, and for a challenge structure with the financial means to bring this village gem to its greatest use once again. I'd like to bring the principals in to talk a little bit about the financing of what they have and about their own corporate background, which they know better than I'll ever know, and to give you some insight about their longevity. They've been around since '83. They can tell you a little bit about what they're all about and what their intentions are. And I'm going to get this, I brought pictures, but we all know what it looks like, right? Yeah. It's just down the block. So I won't bore you with the details. Go ahead.
Thank you for this evening. My name is Elio Mazzella. I'm the president of Interoceanic. Interoceanic, as Dennis had mentioned, was started in 1983 and became a New York State corporation. It started off in Connecticut in 1986. We're brokers of agricultural chemicals to large farmers, ship worldwide, and have been in the business. I've personally been in the business for 40 years, over 40 years. So that's aging me a little bit, but that's the way it is. And we do business here in the United States and internationally. We import material, we export material. We represent manufacturers of agricultural products. We call ourselves a broker, but you could call yourself an agent for them also. We've been here in Ossining for about over 20 years, 22, 23 years. Moved here in very early 90s. I purchased 178 South Highland Avenue. I was there for a number of years. And We got rid of it in 2002 because we started to outgrow it. It just wasn't enough. It was, if you know it, it was a private house that was converted to offices. And we moved over to 500 Executive Boulevard. Well, actually, 400 Executive, then we moved to 500. I really like the village. It's served its purpose very, very well. It's easy to get around, easy for customers to come up to, either by train, driving, whatever it is. They can fly into Westchester County Airport and be at the office in 25 minutes, or they can come into LaGuardia or Kennedy and be here within an hour and a half. There's plenty of hotels where they can stay. I enjoy and have enjoyed many of the restaurants, and so have my customers and suppliers right here in the town and the village, and enjoy it very much. Sorry for saying that word. At the present time, we employ 10 people in the office, and what has happened, we've outgrown ourselves. We have received a couple of agency agreements, which have forced us to expand, and we expect to put on another 3 to 5 people probably by the end of this year, and hopefully expand continually from there. And like I said, we've been looking for a while, and matter of fact, we looked at the Midas building, we looked at one of the other buildings that down near the waterfront, and so on and so forth. And Giulio Vitolo is the agent, the real estate agent that we have been talking to, and all of a sudden he came up with this just a few weeks ago. Okay, out of a clear blue sky. And I've been passing by this thing for 30 years. As a matter of fact, my first mortgage was when People's Westchester is now the Immigrant Savings Bank, so I know the area rather well. You know, Giulio mentioned that, and we came down as quickly as we could, and we looked at it, and it looked very, very nice. I've always loved the building. I love the architecture on it. I love the location. And what we're looking for is something where our people don't have to get in the car to go to lunch, to do things. They can go outside. They can go to restaurants. We use the banking. You know, we use Chase and the other bank. So it's a convenience that the people would have to be able to go out lunch shopping and so on and so forth at lunchtime, rather than getting in a car. And don't get me wrong, Mr. Beldotti's a great landlord, but it's, you know, you're in the middle of nowhere there. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Also, we kind of have constant visitors, both from overseas, here in the States, domestically, and so on. A lot of people are constantly coming up from New York, bankers and customers and so on, who are in town from overseas. And we just feel that the building would be very impressive, and it would be very, very easy to get to. Okay? So, like I said, when we found that that was for sale, and let me say that Ingrid was extremely, extremely cooperative, and met with us in a matter of hours, literally to show the building. We walked in there. It's not the best place in the world to walk into and look around, so we did it as quickly as we could, got in and out, but just looked at generally that the space. But we felt that the shell of the place, and we immediately called Dennis, whose name was on some of the architectural plans before, and we felt it would be an advantage rather than starting new with an new architect. And so he's filled us in quite a bit and given us some information on it. You know, we feel that, you know, the village, in my time, it's just become so much more vibrant. And the changes that you see going down Main Street, you know, with the building, the refurbishing of the buildings and so on and so forth. And I think it's just a great place to have a business and to domicile yourself in. And that's why we've been here as long as we have. You know, we just like all the services that are available to us. We like the location. The geography could not be better. And you got the Ossining train station, you got the Croton train station, you got the Conic State Parkway, you know, 2 minutes away. You're 15 minutes from 684, so we feel we've got quite a bit. We also feel that there's a great workforce. Okay, here you are, you know, we're northern Westchester, and, you know, we can draw very easily from, you know, White Plains and farther into Putnam County for people, but the thing that we're finding is that reverse commutes are becoming more important for people too. And we have two of our people who reverse commute from New York City. And, you know, again, this would be an easier place for them to get to than where we are right now. We are on a tight time frame, as Dennis mentioned, only because we had been looking and had no idea that this place was for sale, or available, I shouldn't say that. Like I said, we wanted to stay and have been looking and have been pounding the bushes in Ossining, and just didn't find anything that we felt would suit our needs, but looking at it, 200 could probably would fit our needs. Again, we want to stay in the village. We just feel it's a perfect place. Big thing is, and again, I know the other people came up, and I'm not, we would not need any financing. We would come in, use our own financing to do whatever has to be done. So we would not be subject to financing and other considerations that might be required. Like I said, we've been in business as the company over 30 years. You know, people look at me and say, well, what do you care? You're 30 years old, what do you gray hair? How much longer are you going to be around? Well, here's my succession plan. so he'll be around for quite a while, okay? And he's also very pro-Ossining, okay? And that's why, I mean, we've looked at Julio was good enough to show us the empty lot, you know, right next to the Midas building. We looked at the Midas building. We looked at, and, you know, to be honest with you, there's not many pieces of property that are available for sale.
Can you tell us who he is? Your succession?
Right, this is my son, Elliot. That's my son, Elio. I'm sorry, I apologize. Well, actually, he's the boss. I'm just here with the gray hair right now. So, you know, and we feel that we would like to give back also to the community. We are taking in temporary people, temporary hires at times, and we feel that would be an opening maybe to some of the high schools, you know, a couple of the students at a time coming in, just to, maybe in summer times or during the holidays and so on, to see what an office atmosphere is like, because that's all we are. We're an office. Okay,
So all of the employees that you've recently hired and plan to hire in the future are only office employees?
Only office employees, yes.
How many of them live in Ossining?
I think 3 of them, 3 out of the 10, 3 out of 10, 3 out of 10 or 11, I forget exactly how many we have. So basically about 30% of our employees are Ossining employees.
You did quote our VC code as being, as wanting people on the streets day and night, any time of the day or night. Are you 9 to 5 or?
No, we're 9 to 5. We're closer to 7 to 6.
7 to 6.
But we, like I said, we constantly have people coming up, dinner, after hours meetings. And I say after hours meetings only because people from New York City, they come up at, you know, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll have dinner, come into the office, and so we're more than that. You know, a lot of us will come in on Saturdays for work.
Can I ask you how you came up with the $90,000 that you're proposing? Where does that figure come from? I don't care which one answers it. I would be curious.
I tried to figure out well.
You step forward to the microphone, please. Thanks.
I tried to mitigate the improvement cost against the land cost on what it would be, and I just rounded off numbers saying it's so heavy as far as construction goes that in order for somebody to take a stab at it and make it really worth something, you almost have to get it for something, but yet all of the improvement cost is going to, by far, as you can tell, $750,000 to $100 to $1 million. That's where the money's going to really lie. So I sort of said, in the back of my mind, it's somewhere around 90 and 90,000 would be kind of 10% of the overall improvement costs, and we threw that number out there. As I mentioned earlier, that I looked at it at one time to buy myself. Ironically, it was about the same number I came up with back then. So the only reason why it hadn't gone up with normal real estate prices was because the deterioration took it the other way. As far as I was concerned, it looks much worse now than it did, let's say, 10 years ago when I looked at it. So it's kind of like a descending value, which is pitiful. I mean, not that we can go back in time, but a good roof job and a couple of waterproofing things, that all of that plaster work would have been totally intact. But it went through.
No, a lot of it was torn out with the marble.
Yes.
And when they hung the second floor, which
When they hung
was
it,
a
and
disaster.
then there was somebody that did some mechanical work that's
Yeah.
brand new,
Yeah.
but never operated. I crawled in the crawl spaces above the building. And we don't know if the mechanical systems work or not. We know the ductwork's in there, but they totally tore it to shreds. I mean, the integrity of it on the inside has to be rebuilt in some way. So
Right.
somebody's got to really understand it. That's sort of where it came up.
Can I just ask Dennis, what do you, to what do you attribute the disparity between your estimate and what the village had in terms of the monies that would had to go into the building? We've heard numbers of 2-point-something million, and you're talking 750 to $1 million.
I don't know. I think the use was a little bit different. If you use it for a place of public assembly, from a code standpoint, you need 2 means of egress. Obviously, you need a handicap ramp. You'll probably need to retrofit that whole elevator for a larger size, which is in the inside of it. We're going on the ADA laws saying that ADA, a simple concept. If you're a restaurant in New York and you have a ground floor and you're serving there and you have a mezzanine, then you don't necessarily have to have ADA access to the mezzanine if you can provide the same level of service to the ground level. In other words, there's no discrimination taking place. So where if you're a public entity, you're buying a new elevator, which is another 100 and some odd thousand to do that. Now, we might opt to do that in the future, but it's not necessary initially. Some of the items that we've talked about don't have to go in day one. For instance, the windows are all single pane, given its era. We can wait a little while, and then maybe in 5 or 6 years or so, go with double pane, low E glass, and upgrade the windows accordingly. It all depends on how you skin the scope, but we're looking for a very open plan. I don't know what the other intents were. A very open plan, very open offices, very few offices in it, and just basically clean up the building as a shell. And that's where most of the money's going to go. Probably about 3/4 of the money, of the improvement money is going to go.
Would you go back to the original window configuration, the mullions, which are different from what is currently there? I don't know if you've looked at historical photographs, but if we're going to have the building restored, it should be restored.
Well, it's on the National Registry, so you really don't have a choice if you're going to do that. You could sort of find an easier way. You could put the panes on the inside of the existing glazing and still get that thermal value, which is the most important thing, and not change a bit of it on the outside.
Well, I'm sorry if actually this is more like a general statement for all the people who are presenting the 200 Main Street project. Whoever gets the lucky person to use this building for any type of use, one of the first things, because it's a landmark building, because it's an historic preservation district on Ossining, it has to go through the HPC. The HPC at that point will determine the type of functions and how the inside, not as much, but definitely the outside and how the windows work. So I think that will determine how the windows will be finished. So I think we may be jumping a little bit, and I understand your concept, but I think that's something that that we can definitely look forward to see the building restored to the best that the building deserves.
I understand totally. It's just, like any company that wants to go in and buy something, you could do things day one and you could do things day two. We've talked about it. We're not touching the outside skin at all because of its historic integrity, and the only thing we have to add by code is the ADA ramp. It works pretty easy, actually. It goes from that landing around the corner of the building and down. I checked the pitch already.
Correct. But even if you do that type of situation for, even if it's a restaurant, brewery, office space, you still have to go in front of the HPC.
Yes. Yes.
You got it.
Yeah, we know it's a complicated deal. That one's actually pretty easy to get because they understand that there's physically disabled that need access to the code, to the floor plan. I don't think that's a hard one to do. And we can imitate the same limestone on the outside with, let's say, a wall or something in front of the ramp. It's pretty easy to do. I don't see a problem there.
Okay, any other questions?
But getting back to your point, it all depends on what your scope of work is that determines the actual price for improvement. For instance, the brewery, I imagine, if they go with large kettles or something like that, they'll be taking out pieces of that mezzanine floor, which wasn't the original anyway, but I'm just saying, so maybe they have more structural involved, maybe they have more mechanical involved, maybe they require higher amperage than, let's say, office use, which is, well, the electric has to come in new service anyway, but I'm just saying, maybe it's a little bit more. As far as the community use, that maybe there was some other things driven on that improvement cost that we're not figuring in, or we're figuring into to a later date.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, our last and final presenter is Mr. Stephen Vesio, who will discuss his idea of acquiring the building to house an event hall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Evening, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
First, I'd like to thank the board for spending the time to try to get this gem back to the condition it used to be. I've lived in Ossining area my entire life. I went through the Ossining schools, and it's a really important building to get back to its glory. It sits right at the top of Main Street. It's visible to Route 9, which has a huge traffic count. And when you guys get that building re-going and just rebuilt, it's really going to show the revival of Ossining, and I think that's critically important. Everybody knows the revival's already underway, and I think that's only going to continue. The use that I see, a little bit about myself, in addition to living in the area, I currently own the building across the street at 199 Main Street. I bought it a few years back and completely gut renovated the building. It has a historic facade, so obviously I went through the HPC and all that good stuff. And what we ended up doing was splitting it from the Guida's restaurant, and then after that the Moro's restaurant, into a multi-tenant use. We put 2 offices in 1 apartment, and then a beer restaurant down on the first floor, Keenan House. We had to basically renovate the building from soup to nuts, take it down to the studs. We found holes in the building to go into the next building, which is part of the reason why when there's fires in Ossining, they tend to run. Like when Kip's Pharmacy burned, took down 4 buildings. We patched all those up.
But there won't be any more fires in us.
No, no. And every building nowadays, you're putting sprinklers in anyway, so, I mean, that's a great thing. It's great when older buildings can be transformed to meet modern-day standards, yet still retain their characteristics. And that's exactly what I intended to do at Keenan, and I believe I accomplished. As far as the property itself, I was in there twice, and Ingrid will tell you, the first time I came out, I was a little upset. Somebody took a sledgehammer to the ceiling on the 2nd floor to hang some drop ceiling, which was a beautiful corniced plaster ceiling that simply just, you can't recreate it. I mean, maybe some of it, but all of it, it's going to be tough to do right. And if you were to do it, I think it would cost probably about $200,000 just for that ceiling. So in this instance, this would be a time when you need to get creative. How can we fix the problem while minimizing expense? Maybe you make some of the plasters yourself. Maybe you try to make some of the molds yourself. Maybe others you cover with some sort of soundproofing, some sort of drapery. There's a lot of options. The problem with the property right now is that you can't even really get the true picture of what's wrong with it. There's standing water in the basement. There's mold all over the first floor and the 2nd floor. And nobody wants to be in there for more than an hour. First step you guys need to do is clean that property up so you can get a true picture. To get this thing into shape, you have to take everything out. You have an active water leak. There's standing water in the basement. You have to fix that first. The veneer, it looks good, it needs work. You're going to have to do repointing. You're going to want to waterproof it while you have the scaffolding up because you know you're redoing the roof and the leaders. Drainage, probably got to do some drainage. Bring in all the utilities from the road. These are all things that need to be done. These are all things I did at Keenan House. It's not that complicated if you know what you're doing. I've been doing construction pretty much my whole life. I own several properties. All of them happen to be over 100 years old. So I'm very familiar with dealing with things and remaining the integrity while still minimizing costs, which is going to be important on this, because for somebody to go in and spend $2 million just to fit out, just to get the space in order, and then it's another $1 million for a brewery, that's a lot of money to recover. I personally think the cost to renovate it is down near the lower end, $500, $750, I think you can get it done for. If you have to put an elevator in, that's an additional cost. Now, it is a historic building. There, could be some sort of leeway with the ADA if you're going to jeopardize the integrity of the structure. Again, National Historic, something that needs to be looked into. My plan for the space would be to create an event hall where people could have private parties, could have artist shows, gatherings, what have you. I work with several venturists who have many uses. That would be the prime one for me right now, would be the event space. However, if another use, such as a restaurateur or a brewery came up, I think that would be a very exciting use for the space. I think that's something that would create excitement in Ossining, which is exactly what I intend to do. That's what I think I accomplished down at Keenan House. And I'd like to get a tenant in there to do the same here. As I stated, this is a real estate venture for me, and I would be finding a tenant to operate in the space. Okay? Proceeding forward, you need some time to get this thing in order. 4 months? No way. This is going to be a one-year project, if not more. And that's assuming you really know what you're doing going through the process. HPC, what are you going to figure? 3 meetings, 4 meetings? Planning board, 3, 4 meetings? You're already 4 months in. You still need to find out what it's going to cost to actually fix this thing. The Calgy thing, forget about it. Even though it's 10 years old, those numbers are way off. I truly don't believe it's going to cost that much. So you're already in 6 months, and you haven't even done anything. While you're going through the approvals, that's when you need to start, hey, let's figure out the extent of the problem. When we uncovered the walls in Keenan, I was able to see outside the brick, out the front. You could never see it from the street. But no big deal. Fix it up. Some of the windows didn't have lintels in them. No problem. Cut the lintels in, do it the right way, so you don't have problems with it. You don't know those things until to really open it up. And none of that stuff is salvageable. The vault, thankfully, is salvageable, because that's a really cool feature of the space. So the reasons that I think I should be the preferred developer. Number one, I have experience. I know the local market, I know the codes, I know dealing with the building department and the HPC and everybody else. I know construction, I know renovations of older buildings. I'm ready to go as far as financing go. I'd be self-financing it with myself and my partners. Funds are ready to go. I'm ready to take action on this property. I'm ready to move forward and help the village to bring it back to its glory and create a great use in Ossining. One that people are going to drive from Cortland, from New Rochelle, because guess what? Those people drove here for Keenan House. They'll come for what goes in there. I believe in Ossining, and I believe in all of you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. New Rochelle is that way, the Hudson is that way, actually, Steve.
It was a metaphor, you know.
I'll take any questions if you have any, otherwise.
How long was the process for Keenan, the whole building? How long did it take you to do the construction part?
We actually did it in 2 separate phases to save time. Since we were splitting it, we actually did 1 approval for the restaurant and 1 approval for upstairs. This way, it kind of helped the restaurant get done a little bit faster, which was important, to get up and running. So we actually started construction on them at separate times. It was almost like 2 jobs within 1 job site. And we started upstairs first and started Keenan afterwards, but ended up finishing Keenan before we finished upstairs. So the process for all of that, I think, was about from the time we went to the first meeting, and don't forget, there's a couple months to get plans done and really get the architect.
I was actually just asking you for the construction part.
Construction part, I would say, was about 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe 10.
And the approval set part of it?
Approval parts took about 6 months, I want to say.
Right.
And then another, figure 2 months for design prior to that, because you want to go in with, a pretty close plan. And have some discussions.
So not
first.
quite 2 years to go from start to finish, from conception to having
Yeah.
a beer and moving people in.
I guess right about there, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe less time. It really depends on how quickly the process goes. I find that when there's dialogue prior to a meeting where the village can convey the things that they'd like to see and it's more of a partnership, it definitely goes a lot easier, and that's kind of what I envision here. I really see this as a partnership, not, somebody trying to fix a building, like working together to get this property back fixed up and occupied on the tax rolls, bringing people to downtown Ossining. It has to be a partnership.
You're looking to find a tenant for it. You're a developer going to fix up a building and put people in it. The other two people who presented are people who want to come and be in the building. There might be some synergy for you to talk to the other two groups and maybe do it for them and with them.
I concur.
Okay.
So do I.
So explain what you mean by partnership. Are you talking about owning it yourself, or, because I don't really totally understand.
Well, I don't know if the village wants to be in the habit of owning properties. I'm not sure what, if any, property taxes could be paid if the village was an owner in it. I'm not versed enough in that. But I think there are more advantages than disadvantages to having the building be privately owned. However, through the approval and reconstruction process, I believe the village should, be a partner, and I don't know how the ownership goes or when it goes, but I think we should really work together on that part because it's going to get done faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, I'd just like to, we're not in the business of hanging on to property. That's not what I think our function is as village government. And the sooner we get property that's in our possessions into private hands and paying taxes, the better. So I can tell you that as far as I'm concerned, if we chose to go with you, we would certainly make our best effort to be a partner with you to make this happen. I mean, it's very important. I mean, one of the things that I feel is that, there's too much property in village hands. And that's why we've done the things that we've done, and we'd certainly work with you. I would do everything I could, obviously within the confines of the process to facilitate that. So.
I feel the same way. We can't hold on to that property once it's being developed. It must be developed by a private individual. It must be in private or corporate hands. But we will certainly work with you.
I mean, we'll work with anybody who decides to move into this space. We want to see everything done. We want to see it done right.
Yeah.
And we want to get it into private hands.
Yeah, I was going to say that whoever it is that develops this, we have as much interest as any of the folks who are presenting in getting that building back on the tax rolls. We have to increase the commercial tax base and get more jobs in Ossining. Those are things that we've been talking about and working on, since this board came into being, since this group got together. And the sooner we can get this on the tax rolls, the sooner we can get a business in there up and running, the better. So I think that regardless of who we go with, you will find this to be an extraordinarily cooperative board.
Great.
We look forward to it.
Yes.
I can't wait to see something there. If the brewery ends up winning out on it, ends up in there, I'll be there quite often. Appreciate your time again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all three of you.
Thank you.
Yes, we will be in touch. Victoria, come on back.
Yes.
Please.
Question on a request for a cabaret license for Trifecta Cuisine Corporation, 175 Main Street. Christina?
So we received an application for a cabaret license. The applicants are here with us tonight. We'd like to ask them to come to the podium, but their application was included in your packet. They have been approved by the building department and the police department, and this is for a cabaret, but they are a restaurant, not a club or a bar. They're primarily a restaurant.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Claudia Villera.
Hey, Claudia.
Yeah, hi. I'm representing Karma Lounge, 175 Main Street, just how she said. I'm sorry. I want to say I'm sorry in the beginning because I'm learning English, so my English is very bad.
No,
I
it's
just
very
sorry.
good.
I hope everybody understands me. So like I said, we applied a few weeks ago for cabaret license. We have a restaurant. I don't know if I see a few faces. They've been there already. They try my food. Our primary use is a restaurant, family restaurant, and we have a little bar on the side. We're planning to do cabaret license because they told me I needed to bring mariachi. We plan to do it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday between 5 and 9, something familiar for family, and we want to see what everybody thinks about it.
You've already been approved by the police department, right?
Yes.
It's okay. Have you gone and the neighbors? Isn't that a thing that you do?
No, the neighbors aren't notified.
So we don't
of
have
this.
to. There's no qualification for that. So all we have to do is say okay.
And then a resolution would be on the following.
I'll say okay.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it was great. We have great food. I had a wonderful meal
Oh, you
there.
try it?
Yeah, I came here the first night. Don't you remember me? No,
No,
thought he was special.
The Friday night.
You thought it was special,
I
John?
came with my girlfriend.
Oh, you get wine.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I'm happy. Ooh,
And he
that's
was there
good.
with us. He was there with us for lunch. So he's been there at least twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys talked to my sister, I think.
Yes,
so,
yes,
and drive
yes.
the cars.
And,
I'm happy. I'm very happy.
Yeah. No,
Good.
we're
We want
fans.
to keep you happy
And
working.
the mariachi band sounds the 5 to 9. That sounds wonderful. I'm going to come and watch. It's going to be.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
We don't plan to do it right away because we was planning to get the approval, and you have to prepare the people, everybody, to see how it works.
So, if it sounds like it's the board's pleasure to move this to our next
Yes,
meeting, which is
please do.
June 18th. It's our legislative meeting, and we've passed a formal resolution approving it. And
So next week.
Next week.
yes,
Wait.
Wednesday, June 18th. It's at 7:30 in the police and court
courthouse.
facility. Yeah, the
In
courthouse.
other
it's
words,
the
we're going
next-
to do another meeting. We're going to have another meeting, and we're going to meet as a legislative body where we vote officially
Okay.
next Wednesday. We'll vote
Next
to say
Wednesday.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
we will be
and-
saying
pretty
yes.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then
Yeah.
after that time is when you can start the band. So,
And I have a very
like the
important
19th would be the first available.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
All right.
cannot
So
say-
this
You're
is the
not
meeting where
allowed
we
to
discuss
say.
the particulars
yeah,
and they have
yeah, I
any
won't be
questions or
saying.
concerns, and if
I
they
promise.
didn't agree to move it forward, that would be the end of it. But they are in agreement to move it forward. We'll bring it up again next week and do the formal approvals.
Okay. Very good. Any more questions?
Yes. Are you considering doing delivery? You should do
Not
delivery.
right now.
Okay.
I think-
Because there's a big bag of money to be made with great food being delivered.
Think
Because-
so.
Particularly if
We never
accompanied by
worked.
a
We have a little
mariachi.
experience in other restaurants before, and we never did it because we don't have the experience. And probably can take that consideration. Maybe it works.
Yeah.
Works fine.
If you want, I'll introduce you to the guys who run Lucy's Pizza up the street, and he can talk to you about delivery service.
If you call me every night, I can do delivery for you.
4500 Street.
Okay, with that in mind, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's very funny.
No, you don't have to
I'll
stay.
say that.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
I'll send that to you.
Bye-bye. All right, great. The next item is an update on the landlord registration local law. Corporation Counsel Lori Lee Dixon.
Sure. I did send out an email earlier this evening. I hope you received it. In the email, and I have some hard copies if you didn't, was the registration form that in draft that we're proposing, so you can see the kinds of information that we're going to be proposed to be collected.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then you can see I made some minor changes to the proposed law, and I still require clarification on the definition from Valerie and Al to be sure that we have a consensus on the proper definition that we'll be using in the section of definitions. It's section number 2, subsection number 2.
Definition of what?
You want,
And
you want to be consistent with the code, right?
Correct, but in our own code, there are two different definitions that would be applicable, so I just want to make sure we're using the most restrictive and the most appropriate one.
Definition of what?
It's the definition, if you recall, of the dwelling unit, the definition of dwelling unit.
Dwelling, okay.
Yeah.
It would be a thing with a roof, walls, and a floor that closes, right?
No, well, that would be a whole separate definition.
Prefer that the floor be closed to start with.
And I'm proposing to number this as a separate chapter in your code, and I'm proposing to number it 166 because that's applicable, it's alphabetical, and this would be a number that would be available in close proximity to the other provisions that you already have. So I've given it a proposed chapter number, and we'll double check to be sure that that doesn't run afoul of anything that Valerie or Al were looking down the line at adding. It looks pretty close. So we're getting close. It would just be clarification of that definition. I'd like you to provide any comments you have on the draft registration materials. You can see what I'm asking for are, it's based loosely on the forms that are out in the public domain. You can see I'm looking for the property owner, and it's the form of entity of the property owner. If it's anything other than an individual or a sole proprietorship, we would like to have contacts of people within that business entity. And in addition to that, if it's not an owner-occupied building, we'd also look at the business agent. We'd also like to be sure that that individual is qualified to accept service of notice and process, so we don't have to continually reach beyond the county and spend additional monies with a third party in order to serve process in the event that that would be necessary. John?
So if we pass this, this would be anybody who owns or anybody who has more than a two-family would be required to fill this out.
Correct. 2 or more residential dwellings.
Okay. All right.
Including in a mixed-use property.
And I guess my other question is what, where are we in terms of, like, if somebody did not comply, where are we with that?
Well, you can see that hasn't changed. At the end of the draft resolution, any person committing an offense against any provision of the chapter, which would include failure to comply, there's a punishment of a penalty no less than $250 up to no more than $1,000. And each day's violation would constitute a separate and distinct charge. Now, this would be pretty easy to determine because we either have the registration or we don't have the registration. So it wouldn't require an inspection of any kind.
Are you saying each day, or are you saying each incident? Which we've had that discussion in past when we've had to, when we have amended the laws earlier, where it was considered that if you went back each day, it was a problem, legally a problem.
No, in this, the actual text of the code says each day's violation shall constitute a separate and distinct charge.
I like it. I would like to see language added to that section that anyone giving, and again, I'm paraphrasing because I'm not an attorney, anyone giving false statements will be subject to criminal penalties up to and including however long in jail.
That's clearly spelled out on the registration form itself.
Yep.
And it's a sworn statement, so you would be subject to the penal code as to swearing out a false instrument.
Yeah, I want it to be made clear so that when we arrest people for it, and it is my intention that we do, that there's a lot of problems that happen with laws is municipalities pass laws and then don't enforce them, and I want to see this strictly enforced. Because we have a problem with recalcitrant landlords. And, I want it to be made very clear that if you make a false statement on these forms, you will go to jail.
Criminal prosecution is...
It says very clear, Bob. It says, false statements on the source would be punishable as a violation of the penal law of the state of New York pertaining to making and filing false statements.
Yeah, I want to add what the penalty is.
But you can't say what the penalty is because it might change. We have no effect. On
and
it.
I tried to leave it as broad as possible so you wouldn't be forced to change the form every time the state decided to add a surcharge or subtract a surcharge.
I have no problem with that.
So do we know what the current what the current punishment is for false statements?
I don't, because I don't get those notifications. This is a criminal prosecution, so that would be the district attorney, Westchester County, but I could certainly look it up and do the research for if you were
I think
interested.
Bob is looking for the hammer here.
I am looking for the hammer.
We should at least know what it is. So
Sure.
We should know what, we should know how,
If
the
only
size,
to
the size
assuage
of our
Bob,
hammer.
you know.
Sure, I will. I will make that happen.
Thank you.
It's not a nose tweak, it's a hammer.
Oh, wise guy, huh?
So Lori, after this, we're going to go back to the CO portion of the second part, I guess.
Yes, I did get a response from my fellow corp counsel who has extensively worked with this, and we're working out some carve-outs, so we're clear the applicability of that. So I do expect to be bringing that back in the next couple of weeks. He did respond back to me, and we've been having dialogue by emails.
Okay.
But once I can nail down, I think, that remaining definition, and unless you had further changes or questions about the text of the law itself, I would propose we could bring it forward. But I'll let you know in 2 weeks at your next work session if we're ready to go, and we might be able to call for a public hearing on this if you desire.
Very cool.
Thank
you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What's next?
It's the Sing Sing Prison Museum.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
that's
so the
all
mayor,
right.
the mayor, turn it to the mayor.
We have had on every budget since 2005, I think, maybe 2006, $10,000 put aside towards building the Sing Sing Prison Museum. But it is not possible for us to be lead agency in applying for grants for various reasons, one of which is that it would be incredibly expensive and might, in fact, be problematic in terms of conflicting with other grants that we are applying for. However, HHRT has taken on, and for those watching, that's Historic Hudson River Towns, has taken on the position of lead agency and is on behalf of all of the Hudson Valley municipalities in HHRT. HHRT is applying for state grants next week. As part of the deal for all of those grants is that there is local matching money. And in the grant that is in question here in this resolution, it's a grant for $75,000 for environmental protection fund money. We're developing a renewal of all of the paperwork that's been done over in the past. The feasibility study, we have to redo this because the last study was done in 2008 and published in 2009. So the $75,000, the grant, if we get it, is $37,500. The local match is $5,000, and in kind can be as high as $32,500. But that's only one of several grants we're applying for. And so we are raising private money. I talked about the fundraiser on Friday. Today we had a very large stakeholders meeting with people from the senator's office and Congresswoman's office and Sandy Galiff's representatives and the county legislature and various other things, and Metro North and individual corporations who want to get involved in this process. So there is money that will be donated or contributed by some of those organizations to make up some of the local matches that will be needed. If we get all of this, the local match will be 52,500. So at most, that's what will be needed. We believe that we can make that money.
But this resolution only calls for $10,000.
Exactly, because that is our portion of it.
That's our portion.
The rest
so-
of the money will be raised from private sources or other governmental sources.
So we're not increasing our budget.
Or private.
We're not
no,
increasing
we're
the
not.
budget. We already have $10,000.
Actually, we are, I think, increasing it by $500. $500 was spent on some previous version of this same thing, which was not a match to a grant, but it was part of this. This is a 3-year project with a very large amount of money in the long term. It's about a large amount of money. The construction, so far as we know now, because we haven't done the feasibility study, which is year 1, but ultimately we think this is going to cost around $25 million. It is the sort of thing that that the state is now encouraging as a high priority, because even in the 2008 study, it showed that it would be a huge economic boon to not only the village and the town of Ossining, but to the entire region. And we had a representative there from the boat company that provides that takes people from San Francisco to Alcatraz, who said that they have 1.6 million visitors a year, and they can only take 300 people in a shot.
So it's a very busy boat.
And Alcatraz is a very small prison on an island that was only a prison for 30 years. Sing Sing is world famous. Alcatraz is famous because of 1 or 2 movies, but Sing Sing is world famous for the last 200 years. So this project seems to be moving forward. We seem to have support on all levels of government, and now with HHRT taking the lead from all of our colleague governments around us.
Right. But to finish, what we're looking for tonight is to approve a resolution for next week to support the HHRT grant application
Right.
and to commit $10,000 of village budget.
That's correct.
So that's okay with me.
That's only if needed.
Right.
If
If
we don't
need-
get the grant, it's not needed.
That's right. So it's okay with me. Anybody else? Good with me.
Yes, they were
Yeah?
looking for a resolution, I think, to be passed this evening.
Yes, it has to be this evening, because the grant application has to be in on Monday.
So we have to go into legislative session
Yes.
and do this, so we shouldn't do that unless we have the votes. Do we have the votes?
I think we have the vote.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
so
I
let's
agree.
do that
Right,
then.
so shall we?
Yes, please.
Motion to move
Motion to adjourn, right?
To move into
To
legislative.
move into legislative session.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you want me to take a roll call?
Yes.
Trustee
The
Garrity.
signs are right here.
I don't have my
We've got
regular
signs.
Hi, Anne Marie. How are you doing? Good, Victoria.
He's in work session mode, that's all.
That's good.
Trustee Garrity.
Present.
Trustee Codman.
Present.
Trustee Cazada.
Present.
Trustee DeRio.
Present.
Mayor Hannah.
Present.
First, are there any members of the audience that would like to address the board
On this issue?
on this resolution?
No.
No. Letter A, resolution of endorsement and support of a grant application by HHRT for funding of the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum. Whereas the Historic Hudson River Towns, HHRT, is applying to the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, OPRHP, for a grant under the Environmental Protection Fund for funding regarding a project known as the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum to be located at the Sing Sing Correctional Facility, a site located within the territorial jurisdiction of the Village Board of the Village of Ossining. And whereas a requirement under the rules of these programs, HHRT must obtain the endorsement of governing body of the municipality in which the project will be located, and whereas based on the review of the HHRT proposal, the board has determined it is in the public interest to also pledge support toward the funding of the match portion of the grant. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of the Village of Ossining does hereby approve and endorse the application of Historic Hudson River Towns for a grant under the Environmental Protection Fund for a park project known as the Sing Sing Historic Prison Museum to be located within this community. And be it further resolved that the Village Board of the Trustees hereby pledges no more than $10,000 to be applied towards the match requirement for such grant. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all.
Take a motion to adjourn into regular work session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, the last item on the agenda this evening for the work session is trustee liaison reports. I'll turn it again back to the mayor.
Okay, let's start, Bob.
What are we talking about?
Trustee liaisons?
Trusting liaisons.
Liaisons? What's happened?
The Volunteer Ambulance Corps participated in the autism event that was very well attended down at the rec center last weekend. Anyone who is interested in serving the community and would like to certify as an EMT, please contact OVAC. They are located right across from, what's the name of the drugstore there?
Walgreens.
From Walgreens. And it's an extraordinary organization. They have great response times. We're very proud of them. And that's it.
That was quite an event. There was a helicopter from the county police force,
Yes.
dogs. There were actually some people with small dogs who were barking madly at the big dogs of the police.
Yes.
Our SWAT team was there, and ambulances and fire trucks. Very, very good event.
We forgot the hot dogs, so we're really good.
Were
And
they?
Yes.
I don't eat hot
Oh,
dogs,
I'm
so
sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah, and
But yes, they were
OVAC
good.
will be at the Village Fair with one of their trucks, and so if you want to come out and talk to them, this Saturday, they'll be there from 10 to 6.
I'm good, actually. I don't have any reports.
Okay, John?
I met with the fire chiefs on Sunday, and we went over some budgetary stuff. I think the big concern and the budget really is energy cost. Heating, our heating budgets are pretty much not maxed out, but have some concerns about that. And so one of the things that I talked to the fire chiefs about was doing energy audits of all the firehouses. And I was asked, maybe talk to you about, maybe we could do something with Energize. I don't know if there's a way we could route that through, because it would be a great way to reduce our energy costs, not only obviously summer, winter, but just in general, to think about cost takeout and things of that nature. And all the chiefs were in favor of that. Excited. Hopefully, Cataract's going to get its new fire truck in the next couple of months, so we're pretty excited about that, and that's great. Obviously, before I mentioned that on Saturday afternoon at 6:30 on the waterfront will be, the big review of all the firehouses, and all the trucks will be down there. So that's always a great event. And also the first Friday in August, I think it's August 1st is the Friday night. There'll be the annual fire parade. We get fire departments from all over the county and even out of state come, and so there's fire trucks and marching bands, and there's a party at the waterfront on Friday night. It's a great time. So.
Well, the party's not open to the public, so you shouldn't give.
Well,
the
no, but I
impression
mean,
that it is.
everybody goes
But
down to the waterfront,
it's a
and
great
all the
thing.
trucks go down there.
Yes,
So.
come to that event, because I'm going to be marching, and everybody's taking bets to see whether I fall over at some point during the parade.
And then you'll be rolling.
Rolling,
Yeah,
yes.
Rolling, so.
Downhill.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got one more to do here. So, we had the rec advisory meeting this past week, and we had a chance to go around, to all the different facilities that we have in the town and the village. It's a town village advisory board. The rec department's doing fantastic. We have a lot of really exciting projects going on, some of which we've obviously voted on, the lights for the tennis courts, but we're also putting in some playgrounds, and I know that we're working on getting a bid for the floor for the gym. And then the other thing that Henry was working on was putting LED lights in the gym as well, putting together proposals there. That could be a cost takeout where that could pay for itself literally in 3 years. And so Henry's over budget, which is great in terms of revenue. He's ahead, we're $24,000 ahead of where we were last year, but we still have some more registrations for summer camp to come in that might bump that number up. So Recreation's doing great, and we only have Henry for a little while longer, so we're blessed to have him. He's done some amazing work with our Recreation Department. So
Thank you, Joe.
thank you.
Victoria?
Yes. And my family is one of the many in Ossining that gets to take advantage of those programs. My children will be at Ryder Park camps starting in a few weeks. So the most notable activities that I've been involved with recently in my liaison work is on the environmental side. The EAC is going to have their next meeting next Tuesday evening. And there are currently 5 members on the EAC. There's some open spaces. Bill Hanauer and I interviewed candidates a little while back, and there's something that needs to be figured out. But I'm hopeful that by the July meeting there will be more new members. So we're gonna look at that and make our final decisions and put our see if we can get some more appointments done before that. Yesterday afternoon, the Sustainable Westchester hosted a climate vulnerability workshop, and I'm tentatively using the term Sustainable Westchester. It's not actually its own entity right now. You've heard me speak before about NWEAC, which is the Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium, and there's a similar group that started in the southern part of the county called SWEAC, and I've been on the steering committee that is merging those two entities, and we are so close, we think, to getting all of the paperwork finalized with New York State so that it will be truly one group. And every 2 weeks we get together and we work on the logistics. It's a group of about 11 of us. We've got our logo nearly ready. We've hired a launch manager. In fact, she was at this afternoon's event. Nancy Gold with the Gold Standard. She's going to be helping us with the event planning and the rolling out of the launch in the coming several months. Oh gosh, I hope I was allowed to say that out loud. I think so. Well, I have now. So, and I will say a couple of things. The vulnerability workshop yesterday was really valuable. There's some interesting folks from all over Westchester, from the Sound Shore, from the Hudson, from inland, all over the county, talking about, the fact that it started out with a lot of really doom and gloom numbers that so many of us have heard about climate change and all of the many studies. And but then we moved into what do municipalities do? How do we make assessments of what systems are going to be most greatly impacted and what systems can we have the greatest influence in being either preventative, mitigation, and adaptation, which would, is pointing out that there may be some things that we can do to prevent damage and overtaxing our grids or our structures and our infrastructure in our communities. So there's some things that we can do preventively, and then the rest of it is how do we just deal with it when it comes? What can we do when we inevitably have some big major storms that cause flooding or excessive heat waves? So it was a really interesting study with some very interesting people, and I look forward to. I haven't brought it to the board yet for consideration, but I'll give you a sneak peek of an upcoming email from me. There's an organization, and I think you're all probably familiar with it for one reason or another, called Climate Smart Communities. And I know the town is members. I'm pretty sure we're not yet members in the village. And it's a...
We should do that.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it, but I'm pretty sure we're not officially members yet.
We should be.
And it's free, and
Yeah,
they're a
we should
resource
definitely.
for us.
Aren't they making the prevention and mitigation plan for Westchester? Isn't that what they're working on?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
for the whole Hudson Valley. There's
yeah,
a
we
team
need
of
that.
people that are working with Hudson Valley, and that's the team of people that helped organize this with Sustainable Westchester, this program. So it was a very valuable workshop. And with that, I turn it back to Mayor Hanauer.
Thank you. WMOA is going to have one more executive session at the end of the month, and then they're off for the 2-month period. We haven't had a meeting now for over a month. However, HHRT is overly busy at this point with the Sing Sing project. We're also working with the Nature Conservancy and the Estuary Advisory Committee on all sorts of things. They have contracted with us to do some work for them. We are expanding into farther north regions. It's our goal actually to have membership of the organization go all the way up to Albany along the Hudson. And, you know, we've made it good in the last year. We've brought in Newburgh and Beacon, which I think is really...
That's important.
It's very impressive. And we're now... there's a presentation that I was part of to the government of Rockland County, and now there is, as the forum that Ingrid organized here at the library for all of those development types is being now done in Rockland County, and HHRT is part of that. We're one of the panels on that as well. Interesting things happening in the state government. There is fewer than 2 weeks left of the session, because of the governor's agreement with the Working Families Party and the more left-leaning branches of the Democratic Party to pull back the Independent Democratic Caucus into line, or there are bills that are just dying on the vine. The DREAM Act is dead for this year. The Women's Health Act is dead for this year. There are people in 4 of the 5 districts that are represented by IDC people. There are now Democrats primarying them. And that is going to happen in this district. It's going to happen throughout those things, to try to bring back the Democratic majority, a real Democratic majority, to the Senate. So stay tuned on that one. We should know in the next couple of weeks what's going on, and we had some great news from Virginia. Maybe great news from Virginia, with Eric Cantor losing by a huge margin in the primaries.
But the guy he lost to is a Tea Party guy who's actually worse than he is, and so hopefully the Dems can run a candidate that'll keep him out.
Well, absolutely.
And we'll get the seat.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure this is appropriate for this meeting.
Probably not.
I think we should move on to any other business that we have.
That was federal government and state government. That's all I have to report on. Richard?
Okay, great. If we could have a resolution to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel, particular persons.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. We're done.
So, we'll see you first at the Sing Sing fundraiser on Friday, then at the Village Fair all day Saturday, and then next Wednesday, I'll get it someday, at the legislative session at the courthouse, 7:30 Wednesday evening. Have a good week.